Hello everyone and welcome to the Dirty Side of the Grid podcast. We've got episode 3 coming today. I'm Mohammed and I'm joined by Youssef in the podcast where we've turned up late to qualifying, some would say disqualified, and we've ended up on the dirty side of the grid. But, well, we're planning on making our way through to the front eventually. At some point, eventually. But yeah, so, well, how have you been, I'd say?
Yeah, it's been alright. We had an incredible race this weekend, to be fair, so it was a nice weekend, I'd say.
It was good, yeah. If this is the first podcast you're seeing of us, seeing as we've recently started posting about this now, we're getting out there. So it was definitely a good race to start with, I'd say. A lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff to explain, I'd say. A lot of it might have been confusing for some people, but I'd say I want to lead this off by saying if you did somehow listen to the live show I did on the University Radio Nottingham about the race, I tried to do an hour's show previewing the race and saying why you should watch it. I'd say I was completely right. It was very entertaining, a lot of stuff happened. We'll try and stick to that hour mark and stay on topic, but we can never guarantee that, to be honest.
We always run over, but that's okay.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. So, also just before we start as well, there's a Apple Podcast will be coming soon. We're still not on that yet. It's on Amazon Music now, and I believe Google Podcasts should be out soon. So, more
So
links
now
and
it's
stuff.
on. It's going to be on Apple Podcasts,
It's on
Spotify,
Spotify.
Amazon.
It's on Amazon Music,
and Google
Google
Podcasts,
Podcasts.
YouTube, TikTok, and soon Instagram.
Alright. Well, before we get into what I'm planning to do is a chronological order of the weekend, seeing as we had sprint qualifying, and then the race. We're going to do a 60-second summary of the entire weekend. So, not just the race this time, and maybe it will last longer than like 10 seconds. Alright, so...
Mexico is very boring. I did tell you Mexico was going to be very boring.
You did call it, to be fair, yeah.
Wait, okay.
I was
okay.
spammed on
See,
WhatsApp
now,
how right you were.
Now this is going to be difficult because there's so much to kind of try and get into the weekend. Okay.
Guess what?
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go.
So Hamilton gets disqualified after taking pole, which sprint, if you get qualifying, that's pole, I don't care whatever they say. Gets disqualified because of 0.2 millimeters off the wing. But then in the sprint comes back from P20 to P5, gets a 5 grid spot penalty because of new ICU, and then he goes on to absolutely do incredibly in the race and come back from P10 to win, overtaking Max in incredible fashion. Max pushes him off the racetrack, which is a bit kind of iffy, should have gotten a penalty. And then what else do we have? Ferrari, incredibly consistent. Gasly was amazing. McLaren, not very good. Ricciardo had loss of power, which is a bit iffy for Mercedes in the last few races because he has a Mercedes engine. And what else? Mazepin crying was a bit funny. Tsunoda was horrendous. And I think that's it.
That's 60.
Yeah, that's it.
No way.
I got the whole weekend in.
I'm kind of annoyed how good that was.
Yeah, I'm very good at this, I'm happy with that, actually. I don't think I missed out anything. Like any big event.
That was pretty much like all the talking points I've got down. But we'll go through it and see what happens. We'll expand in more detail and deviate and end up talking about Monaco or something. So, I guess...
Okay, I have one point to talk about before we start.
Oh no.
Kubica, Robert Kubica,
Yes.
in the Renault in 2010,
Yes.
one of the pit crew forgot his phone in the car with him, and so he had to come through the pit stop, give him his phone, and then leave again.
In Brazil?
No, it wasn't in Brazil. I just saw this literally this morning, and I was like, I have to bring this up. Imagine someone forgot the phone in the car, and he's
That's
driving.
actually
He's like,
pretty embarrassing.
I have someone's phone in my car with me.
I feel like I remember seeing this, but I'm not sure.
He was at
I'll probably
Renault.
leave the clip in the description. I did the same thing with the Martins Brundle stuff from last week, so I'll probably just leave the video in the description. Well, on to qualifying, I guess. So, as you said, qualifying, we started off, and it began with Lewis getting pole, the first of, well, quite a long time, to be honest. It's been a while since he's got pole, hasn't it?
I think it's surprising they actually got pole, because I think going into Brazil, Brazil is kind of relatively similar to Mexico, relatively similar to Austin in terms of it's at high altitude, and so you expected it to be kind of a Red Bull track, Red Bull dominated. I did not expect Lewis to take pole.
Especially by 4/10 as well.
Yeah, I think the performance gap was a lot more surprising than Lewis taking pole. The fact that he took pole by 4/10, and Max was flat out. There are no excuses. No one was in the way. Nothing. He was out, like purely on pace, on merit. I think that was very surprising because I thought it would be the other way. I thought Red Bull would have 4/10 on Mercedes, but the performance Mercedes had down that straight was just
that was
incredible.
Next level.
Like,
Some of the onboards.
Perez actually spoke about this after the race. He basically said that on the straights he'd see Hamilton and he's very far in his mirrors. And by the time they got to the end of the straight, Hamilton's literally side by side with him. That's how much performance they had. It was insane. Like Lewis put in the last after he passed Max in the last like 15 or so laps, he put 10 seconds. 10 seconds. This is not Valtteri or Perez or like Max Verstappen. 10 seconds. And like Max is in a good. Last year, the years before, Mercedes dominated. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But Max is in a competitive car. For him to put 10 seconds on Max, that's just insane.
Yeah, unlike you said before, it was like worn tyres. He's been pushing
he's
the
on
whole
worn
race, all of
tyres.
this, and this is meant to be his cool down period. Like he's
Exactly.
got past him, push out maybe a 3-second gap as a buffer, and then just cool off.
No, he managed to push more. So I was very surprised with him.
Yeah, it was strong from him. It was a very strong performance. Moving
Would
on.
you
from
argue
that,
is one of his best?
Well, here's the thing. So
He
I saw
said-
a post
he said
recently.
that. He
He
said
said
that
it was
it's
one of his best, and
best.
you know what? I feel like in terms of drives, it's very hard to compare. There are some like Turkey 2020,
I think,
Germany 2018.
I think
comes to mind.
Silverstone 2008 comes to mind.
Yeah.
I
But
think
this
those two, out of all his drives, I think the ones that come to mind as just kind of spectacular. You know, like when you watch him and you're like, yesterday, watching Lewis yesterday,
Yeah.
it reminded me of Lewis Hamilton, the one you actually enjoyed watching.
Bro, honestly,
Because-
certain people needed to remember. Certain people
because,
needed a reminder of that.
Lewis Hamilton, throughout this season, Lewis has been very cautious in the way he's overtaken, he's been like that. But Lewis, yesterday, he came out with the spirit of Ayrton Senna. He was just going for it.
Yeah.
He was aggressive,
he was
on it. And I enjoy watching that. I like watching Lewis, be aggressive.
He has a point to prove now.
Exactly.
Like before, he didn't have a point to prove,
But
but
that's
now
the
he
thing.
feels like he has
Max
a
is
point
always
to
the
prove.
aggressive on and stuff, but Lewis yesterday was aggressive. He was on it, and I loved it. Everyone loved
it was
That's
really
why
nice to
everyone
see.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, and one of the points I actually made was, we're so used to now over the past few years, you go to a race, Mercedes go, we're probably the underdogs to be honest. We're Red Bull and Ferrari, they're looking really strong because obviously this was when Ferrari was like, okay. They're looking so strong. This is kind of a Red Bull track. This is kind of a Ferrari track. Have you seen their power unit? No, it's so good. I think we're gonna lose this weekend. They come out 1-2, pole by 5/10. Lewis wins by 20 seconds. No like drama or anything. He just wins on pace by 20 seconds. And then they come back and they go, yeah, the car was pretty strong. But you see next weekend though, Red Bull are looking kind of tough next weekend though. I don't think we're gonna manage it. But this time, you see purely. Hold on, let me find it. Purely because of this. What am I looking for? Not that. We're gonna come on to that. This. You see this? If that's not focusing, that's the picture of Toto Wolff looking like proper mad. Yeah, right. That, we have not seen that in a very long time. That is Mercedes with a point to prove. And that is Mercedes when they've been backed into a corner and they need to push and they need to do something and they're being tested. This is what people have been asking for.
This is the first time in a long time that they've been tested.
They're so
Lewis
comfortable.
this whole season, this is the one thing I've kind of commented on is Lewis this whole season has not had that. We know Lewis is a winner. He will do everything he wants to win and he has that fire to win. But I think yesterday was the first time I've actually seen him on track. Just go for it, really go for it. He does not care because if he doesn't win, he's lost the championship. He's not like, I can't hit him. No, he doesn't care. He's going full out for it. And it was incredible to watch. That's why people find Max so exciting to watch. It's because he's going for every move.
Yeah,
that's why people found people like Michael, Ayrton and like drivers like that very exciting to watch. And you see it now, Lewis is he had that yesterday, and I want him to keep that going. I don't want him to go back to a cautious Lewis.
No, yeah, you
He was
don't.
too scared to make a move. No, he was going for it, and it was like he picked up like so many, because he was daring in that first move. He went from like the left all the way to the right in the sprint. It just passed so many people in the first lap. You're like,
I can't wait for someone to post that full on board, and I'm so jealous of people who have F1 TV who could just watch the entire thing from his point of view, because that must have been incredible. Like, honestly, you're completely right. At the start, you know, at the start of people's careers, they're rookies. They've got things to prove. They have no respect or anything. They're hungry. They need to go out and get it. They need to fight for the championships. They need to fight for races. They need to fight for everything. But now he's won so much and he's achieved literally everything you can achieve. He has no reason to be all aggressive and stuff as much anymore, especially with a lack of competition in the last 2 years.
I think now he actually realised that going into Brazil with the penalties and everything, that if he'd lost in Brazil, realistically, he'd lost the championship.
Yeah, he can't sit back and go, all right, well, I'll just come back to 10th, go back to 15th in the race, and then come back to 7th.
Yeah, he'd have lost the championship. And I think that kind of got that fire going again in him, that, okay, I have to win here.
Yeah.
And he went out there and he performed, and this is the Lewis, I kind of attribute this, the last time Lewis had the same kind of way in the car, the same kind of driving almost, was 2016. 2017, 18, 19, 20, Lewis mellowed up, because Lewis didn't have, like, he could argue...
There were moments in 18, Germany 2018, that was the style I was going to bring up.
Yeah,
this
but
is the
that's
second
the thing.
lowest he's won from.
He wasn't that aggressive in the car. Because
True,
he
yeah,
had so much more performance than everyone else that he could cruise past you. But
there are a lot of straights in Hockenheim.
Exactly.
There's some big, like, the track's very wide. Like, there's a lot.
Exactly.
Of space.
It's very easy to overtake, and in a car like that, no one was stopping. No one was coming even close. And so yesterday was kind of throwback to 2016 when he's fighting tooth and nail with Nico, and he's just looking for anything to pass that kind of. That desire to win. You saw it yesterday, and I think that kind of, it got everyone, because everyone was sitting at the end of the race and being like, that was incredible to watch. Even if you're a Max fan, you have to give him credit. Like, for what he did was just incredible. It was the same drive, like Max coming from P20 to was it P2 in Russia.
Yeah.
That was an incredible drive. He had a lot more kind of circumstances involved.
He had a lot of help. He got stuck behind Alonso.
But it was a great job.
Yeah, it was.
But this drive from Lewis, I think I think probably out of the only one that can compete with kind of that drive is 2008 Silverstone. I think that was the only drive where he came out and just utterly dominated everyone. Like, no one could touch him. And it wasn't because he had a car that was just so much better than everyone. No, you saw his actual skill.
Torrential rain, like
championship
rubber. That's where Massa spun out like.
Massa spun out. He lapped Felipe Massa, his title contender. He lapped him. He lapped up to fourth. He was just he stayed out on the intermediates, and while it was raining, everyone else pitted. When it stopped raining, he stayed on the intermediates. Won by
like Turkey
68
again,
seconds.
Exactly like Turkey. Then he did the same thing in 2020.
But back then, I'd say the grid was stacked a lot more with, like, in terms of drivers, and the performance of the car is a lot closer than Turkey 2020. The performance of the car is just Mercedes is
the Mercedes
so far
in
ahead of
2020
everyone else that I don't think it compares.
That's fair. I mean, what was it? Silverstone 2008 is.
Yeah, I'd say that's
a big race.
One.
Yeah,
I'd say out of those two, I'd say those two are the closest in terms of, and maybe Singapore, where he took pole.
2018.
I think those 3 weekends, Lewis...
Weekends as a whole, because he won Singapore on the qualifying lap.
Exactly.
But it was the level of the qualifying lap as well.
Exactly. He came up with something, I think yesterday, 2008, and this one, he came up with kind of a moment of brilliance.
Yeah.
You know, I was very scared. After he passed Max, I was like, the engine's gonna fail. Because they've been so unreliable. I was like, it's gonna happen like Malaysia. I was like, his engine's gonna die.
Bro, imagine.
And
I had that. But
as soon as he passed the line, I was like, because I don't actually care who wins.
Yeah,
I
just
think,
want it to go.
I think if Max wins, I kind of more lean towards Max, because if Max wins, then Lewis is gonna come next year with a point to prove, and Max gonna come. He's a world champion.
Oh,
now.
bro, he's gonna be so cocky.
And so you're gonna see incredible racing going into that year. If
Yeah.
Lewis wins, then maybe he won't, because now he's broken every record he can break in F1 basically, except like the longest driver, which is like Kimi. But now he's broken every important record in F1. So
Yeah.
I think maybe his motivation will go a bit downhill. Because I don't think he'll care enough to win after the 8th. Once he's won.
No,
I
mean,
think
the
he
thing
signed this 2-year deal because
of Max.
sure he was gonna
Because
win
of
this
Max.
year.
Yeah, that's the only reason he signed a 2-year deal. If there was no competition this year, he would have been gone easily.
Yeah,
You're
but
completely right. Yeah.
it's interesting to see. That's why I'd lean more towards Max winning. But honestly, I just wanted to go to Abu Dhabi. I want an exciting end of the race. I want something like say 2010 in like Abu Dhabi, where like or like maybe not 2010, but I mean in terms of like. You go there, like, even 2016, you know, where Nico was stuck there.
That was, yeah.
That,
So it
that
goes
type
down
of,
to the end, yeah.
That type of, like, you're sitting there and you're just sitting there and you're like, who's going to win? Is it Nico? Is it Lewis? Is it... 2010, you didn't know who was going to win. There were, like, 4 guys who could have won.
Yeah.
Like,
It was
Lewis,
big and it was...
Mark, Vettel and
Alonso.
Fernando. Going to the final, that's insane, you know. That's what I'm hoping would happen next season. With the cars a lot closer together.
Oh, well, more options. Yeah, it should do. That's what they're aiming
Because now if you look at the top teams, you have Mercedes will have George, you have Lewis. Realistically, both of them could contend. You have Max, and then McLaren, you have 2 guys who can contend. You have Ferrari, 2 guys who can contend. I think the rest of the field are a bit behind those guys. I don't put Perez in because I don't think he's on the level of these guys, to be honest.
I mean...
but it'll be interesting. That's why I want the performance to be close. And that's why I'm actually really excited for the new technical regulations, because the performance will be a lot closer. And so it won't be kind of a 1 or 2 guy kind of just running away with it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what has been happening since 2010, after 2010 pretty much. It's just been 2 guys and no one else essentially. But you want to go back to when it was like, you're going into the end of the season, like 2007.
Yeah, you want this grid's time to prove
Fernando, Kimi, and Lewis were going in.
Lewis,
and then Kimi came out and won somehow at the end, you know? Or like,
you want that last guy to come in out of nowhere and then switch things up and make things different. Because it adds a different level to strategy if Bottas had a chance of winning the championship.
Exactly.
So
if
Red Bull have got to watch out on that.
Realistically, if he came out, won a few races, he's in contention to win, okay.
Now if Verstappen gets stuck behind him, you know, even though he normally passes him very easily, that's a massive risk.
Exactly.
You're right. Well, this is a Brazil race review, so we're going to have to go back to Brazil quickly. And we're nowhere near the race yet, but quickly we're just going to mention the qualifying antics. Lewis's DRS, as you mentioned, 0.2 millimeters above the threshold. Mercedes arguing it was because of damage or malfunction. The FIA have clarified that it wasn't due to them trying to cheat, it just happened. They are annoyed about the penalty, but I'd say it's fair, I guess.
Yeah, I think rules are rules. If you break the rules...
Even if it's a small margin, you can't give people...
It was the same thing that happened with Sebastian in Hungary, where he lost the win because they couldn't extract the fuel is in the car. They had the maths to prove that they hadn't used the fuel. The fuel is still in the car. We put in this much, got this much. We had the liter you required, but you couldn't provide it. So
you just got to stick with it.
The rules are harsh at times, but they're made for kind of fair racing.
Well, that was a good decision they made. We'll get onto the bad ones later, but for now we'll stick with another good decision they made, I'd say. Max touching the DRS. No one's saying he broke it. No one's saying he's doing anything. But first of all, you're not allowed to do that. And second, even Mercedes weren't allowed to analyse Lewis's rear wing or touch it or do anything with it, even under supervision, because they just... I don't know, the FIA didn't clarify why, but they didn't let them do anything to the rear wing.
Perhaps so they don't change anything.
Well, maybe, but even under supervision with the FIA, they wouldn't let that happen. So... We don't know why.
I think it's to keep the car in this exact same condition before they decide.
So exactly for that reason, Max touching not only the car, but the rear wing it's not great, it's very dodgy. And that's why he got hit with a fine. Now, no one's saying it was like a massive dent in his pocket, but it's just a point to prove to say, listen, like, no one should be doing
I don't think that's the... I don't think it's... like him being fine. I think if it was a grid drop or if he got 5-second penalty, 10-second, I think
that's why the fine is fair.
I think that would be very unfair because it's not on track.
Yeah, exactly the same with Lewis. So when he undid his seatbelt and he was hanging the flag, he got 5,000, I believe €5,000 fine.
Yeah,
and then
20,000 for next season.
22 for next season if.
Yeah, I don't. That's the thing. It's outside the race. The race is over. He's in the car and stuff. Fine him.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think like same with Max. You know, it's outside the race. The race hasn't started. Qualifying's over. Fine him.
Yeah, like both of them will probably do it again.
Both of them make like 30, 40 million. So I don't think 50,000 is going to make a big deal.
Yeah, right, which is why, on to the next thing that pissed me off this weekend. Oh, whoops, I didn't mean to minimise that, hold on. I'm trying to get away from this picture back to the one from earlier. This tweet, yeah, if you don't know about F1 Twitter, 8.5k likes is very significant. Like, this is very significant for everyone on Twitter. What on earth is it? If that, I don't know, I can't tell if it's focused to be honest. But this is the picture of Max touching the rear wing. Try not to like knock over. Okay, this is Max touching the rear wing. That says €50,000 fine. That is a picture of Max's car off the Silverstone, and it says 10 seconds. Both completely different. You can't compare them at all, and it's so stupid. Like, this is the definition of what we were talking about in Silverstone, where the penalty isn't based on the result of what happens. Otherwise, if George Russell did this, you would penalise him 0.2 seconds. You'd penalise him 2/10 because of how bad his car is. Because that would be the same thing as giving Lewis a 10-second penalty. Like, it doesn't work like that. Honestly, it's just so brain dead, I can't be bothered, but it just got so much traction.
You can tell he's a Lewis.
Don't do that. Don't do that. It's nothing.
No, I think it's out of context, to be honest.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's just stupid. It's really stupid.
Plus, I think the fine makes sense because he's outside the car. 10 seconds. It's in a race, so obviously he's not going to get fined, is he?
You know, and a lot of the comments as well were actually 10-second time penalty is probably worse than a 50,000. Like, imagine giving Lewis 50,000 for this.
Yeah.
Imagine what would
happen. He would have won the race easy.
He would have won the race easily. He would have punted him off the track, destroyed his car as he did, but instead of get penalised in the race, you just take a bit of money out of his pocket and that's it.
That crash cost a few million actually to fix. 1.8 if I remember.
I think he would pay that anyway. He would probably pay the 1 point whatever million over taking the 10-second time penalty.
Exactly.
So we're gonna move on from that quickly, but that was annoying, and it was on 7k likes when I first took note of this. It's now on 8.5, so you love to see it. Everyone being real smart. Now we're gonna go back to the normal logo, or we could go back to Toto. I will stick with this. Not really on brand, but I just like the picture, so we'll go with that. I can't tell how well it's focused. Hopefully that looks good. Right. That leaves qualifying. Now on to the sprint race. So not even the actual race, but we'll go on to the sprint race. Well, what happened? Bottas won.
Yeah, that was very surprising. I'm surprised he passed.
Bottas won a race, bro.
Yeah, I'm surprised he won, like, out of the sprints, he won 2 this year.
Has he?
Yeah, he won.
Oh, yeah.
Was it Monza? No, he won in Monza.
He was somewhere. Oh, I don't know.
He won in Monza and he won in...
It must have been Monza.
No, Monza, sorry, in Brazil.
That's so mad. And he just gets pole for it as well, that's the best part.
Yeah.
I don't think he's won a race this season. Has he won a race this season?
No.
Incredible scenes.
Yeah, but that's not actually what surprised me. I think the sprint was relatively calm in terms of, like, the only thing that's happening in the sprint was Valtteri overtaking Max, essentially.
And then Lewis.
And then Lewis just absolutely just passing, flying past everyone.
You know what?
But that's the thing, no one was actually putting up any, like, effort to stop him. Like, Lando, like, people were like, oh, did you see that pass on Lando? Lando let him through. Literally.
Lando he wasn't really trying.
And just... He wasn't even... Bro, he moved out of the way.
He moved slightly to the inside, but then Lewis just went further.
They know Lewis was anyways going to go behind them.
Yes, there's no point.
So what's the point in... Like, Lewis is anyways going to be behind me by the end. And even if he finishes first, he's behind me. So what's the point in getting in his way?
True.
So Lando literally moved out of the way. He passed and everyone was like, oh... Bro, he's not...
It was a move from very far back. He on the brakes, he was actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, impressive.
Like, it was... I was surprised he kept on the track a few times.
People were like, oh, Lando, how did you let... Because he just let him through. What's the point?
Yeah, no, you can't cast Lando for that. Yeah, you can't.
I don't get it.
Of course, he let him through.
I think the sprint format leaves a lot to be desired. To be honest, in terms of, like,
very true.
The top 3 are competing for points, which will make a difference at the end of the season. But after the third, basically, because so we know basically McLaren and Ferrari are not in the mix for P1, P2, P3 essentially.
Yeah.
So from McLaren down or Ferrari down, whichever, it doesn't make the sprint doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, unless you had a horrific qualifying or whatever, you're just
You can save yourself.
around.
I think honestly,
yeah.
if say for instance, if you say, instead of giving if you say for the sprint we're gonna use the old point system, so first is gonna get 10, second 9, 8, and then 10th will essentially get for 1 point. People will be a lot more racier in the sense that because they want to get the points. They actually make a difference.
You're giving them something to fight for.
Exactly, but I think with the way they do it now, I don't see a point to it, to be honest.
This is why it's interesting. So, my favourite member of the Sky Sports F1 team,
Ted Kravitz.
Ted Kravitz, I listened to his notebook. He said, this is the word on the street from Ted's mouth himself, next year, what they're planning on doing, they've already confirmed this, I'm pretty sure, but there are going to be more sprint races. They're planning 6.
Yeah.
Now, what they're planning to do next year is have it not decide the grid. So, normal quali format. The sprint race will become its own championship. So, what you do is you have 6 sprint races. You maybe, I think they said, I don't think they'd use the normal point system, but they would have points all the way down to 10th, exactly how you said.
And then that will contribute to the championship.
That would contribute to the championship. So the points are earned as normal, and they go towards the championship like normal. The only difference is the 6 random ones. Yeah, so it's nothing to do with the grid. So I'm sure now you're thinking, how do you set up the grid? Well, they'd say you do it either on championship order, so World Drivers' Championship order, or another option for them is obviously to reverse it. Because now it's nothing to do with qualifying, they're thinking they might do reverse grids.
I think that's the Charles Leclerc came out and said that I think reverse grid would, if it's not for the race but for say a sprint qualifying.
I think Lando said this as well. Right?
Yeah, it'd be interesting because I think for a sprint, if you say if you do drivers' championship and so Lewis and Max start P19 and P20 every time,
they're still next to each other, which is interesting. But now they've
got everyone else. It's going to be exciting because at the same time, this does not matter in terms of the actual race.
It's just a little separate bit of fun.
If you get an extra 10 points, fair enough. But if you win the race, you get an extra 25. So
so it's just another dimension. It's something else to consider.
I think that would be a good idea. I think reverse grid and do that just for I think it would be better in terms of it offers obviously viewers much more competitive racing. People going to the track get more bang for the buck. We enjoy racing a lot more.
Yeah.
You get to see your drivers. If Lewis starts P19, he's gonna have a lot of great moves, and you can see a lot of great defending. If Fernando, for instance, is in passes a few people P2 and manages to keep Lewis behind him, while Max is not passing Lewis, or vice versa. Lewis is passing Max, but they're not gonna pass Fernando, for instance, Hungary, what happened with Lewis. Then
now
someone else could win.
Yeah.
And I think that would introduce a lot more kind of interesting. In terms of make it a lot more interesting for the midfield, because if you earn 10 points today, tomorrow you earn 6. They have the chance to earn more points than they can earn in the actual race. So it would add up instead of getting 6 points on a weekend, you could get 18, or you can get 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
So the points add up. I think that would make the midfield battle a lot more interesting.
True, the swings would happen a lot more now. There's more points to fight for. You're right. I'd say I haven't been a fan of the sprint races so far, but I'd say this in general, I'm not a fan of reverse grids qualifying or whatever it is, but to have it as a separate championship, still worth points and stuff, would be a sick idea, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. As long as it doesn't affect the actual race.
Yeah, as long as it's nothing to do with qualifying the race.
My big issue with the sprint qualifying was whoever won the sprint got pole.
That was annoying.
Not annoying. That's wrong because everyone that got pole before got pole because he was quickest on one lap.
Yeah.
I don't care. They'll say whoever starts on the grid is first.
The definition of
I do not
pole position is whoever starts first on the side.
Yeah, whoever's quick. But I think also another point is one of the reasons Lewis actually won in Brazil was the sprint. If there was no sprint, Lewis would have lost.
True.
Lewis would not. Okay.
Well, I only come back to
he could have finished P5, P4, P3. He would not have won that race.
No, there's no.
And I think maybe that's a bit unfair on someone like Max or Red Bull essentially because Lewis managed to cut the deficit down to 10, going into 10 with a new engine, and so he was able to blast his way through.
It was a good strategic move from them.
From Mercedes, yeah. So the question is, I don't think that's fair. I think that
it does
if you have
vary the
your
weight
own-
of penalties.
Exactly.
So
I
now
think,
a penalty, even though, so different tracks, obviously a penalty's worth different amounts. So if you take a penalty, if he took this penalty at Monaco, dead, like, there's no way he's finishing above like 10th. But if
well,
you
he's
took
not
this
finishing
penalty,
above 15.
probably to be fair. But like, you take this penalty at Brazil, you can overtake, it's a bit of help. You take the penalty on a sprint race weekend, you go and win it.
See, that's the interesting point, because everyone was confused about, okay, when is the like grid penalty applied? I think this way it clears it out, because it's always going to be applied in the race. The sprint race is just a separate format. I think also with the sprint race, what it provides is you get qualifying on Friday, and so you only have one practice session. I never liked the 3 practice sessions. Because they got so much time to tune the car exactly to their liking, and so they go out there and they perform like perfectly. Not perfectly, but like
No, exactly.
inch perfect. You
You
get
know
what
what I hate? You know when they go on the
Whereas
Skypad?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so you're right, less practice. It's more under, like, they don't know what they're doing, less
It's
data.
controlled conditions.
Yeah, exactly. It's more interesting. That's why we love rain so much. It's unpredictable. I hate, when you go on the Skypad and they analyse the pole laps and they're like, there's a little twitch on the steering wheel. They're like, you see that? That's a 10th they've lost right there. They're completely right, but you go back to like the 90s, obviously, and they didn't have such good aero back in the day and all these technical controls and stuff. They weren't changing their brake bias mid-corner and all of this. But they're coming in, driving one-handed, fighting the steering wheel, doing all of this stuff. And these guys, like, they get a little twitch of the steering wheel. That's a problem right there, mate. Nah, that's not an optimal lap from you. Like, it's...
Yeah,
I don't know, it's just
think
it's
that's
annoying
why
that they can just tune it that much.
If qualifying was on a Friday, you don't get the chance to tune it that much, and so I think if what they do, if they say, for instance, you've got qualifying and like now, so if you have a sprint race, the way you set up your car on a Friday, you have to it stays in the same conditions for the sprint races. I think if they do that, and say you can change a bit before the race on Sunday. So for instance, you set up your car on a Friday, go through practice, it's set up, you can't change it after like going into qualifying, it's set. So in qualifying you can't change your car.
Park firming rules.
Yeah, and then you go into Saturday, you go into the practice session 2.
Yeah.
You can obviously try a few things, see what's happening, what can I improve, stuff like that. And then you've got the sprint where it has to be in the same conditions as like qualifying. And then I think for the race, if you're allowed to change a few things, I think that would make it a bit more interesting. Because then the setup would not be for one lap. Because they're optimizing.
So you prefer
in practice in the practice sessions, they're optimizing it for perhaps one lap. For qualifying, I have to get that one perfect lap.
Yeah.
Whereas for the race, it's not really like if you lose a 10th or 2, it's not.
So you prefer separate setups? Because obviously the whole point of it now, they're saying we don't want teams to be able to give a qualifying setup and then do a race setup. We'd rather have them. So the rules now are
I don't
same
think
setup.
that's the thing. If it's the same setup, fair enough. Because there's a lot more trade-off. And so it's harder for them. You want to get like a really, really good qualifying one, but you want to get a really, really good race one as well. So I think that's good, but I was thinking at the same time if they do like, you have to hold the same qualifying one all the way to the sprint race, so you're going to actually have to race on it, and there are points at stake. That 10 points, that's 60 points over the course of, if you win 6, that's 60 extra points, which makes massive, a big difference. So I think if they say, oh, you have to hold it through this, and then for the final race, maybe you get a different one, I don't think that will make a very big difference, because it's no longer for that one lap, is for like the race.
Yeah.
So I think that would be okay. If they say, no, you have to hold it, because if you say you have to hold it from qualifying throughout the race, then practice session 2 is just basically they're gathering data on the performance of the tires.
Yeah.
So it's useless.
True.
But if they're using that to set up the car for the race,
that doesn't. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
It makes it a bit more interesting,
useful.
you know. Yeah.
Right.
Because if that's not the case, then okay, we don't need practice session 2 then.
I mean, I guess would that be such a bad thing, getting rid of?
No, but but then you get less racing and
yeah.
less racing.
It's fair. Well, actually, that was one. I mean, we didn't really see it, but the tires, I'd say, were optimal. It was kind of ruined because of the safety car period, but this weekend, everyone started. Well, most people started on what was the medium tire.
And then went hard. Hard.
Yeah. So the thing is also though.
Except Ferrari, they went medium, hard, I think.
don't know why they did that, to be honest. I mean, it worked out
It's
sort of
Mattia
alright, but I
Bernardo.
think you know the start of the season
That's
predictions.
Everything you need to know.
I thought he'd get fired at Monza.
Really.
At Monza, I thought he'd get fired, but it hasn't.
I'm not convinced. But I think what's his name that was before him, the guy with the white hair. I think he's much better.
Stefano Domenicali. No, wait.
No.
No. Oh, I know who you're thinking of.
A white
Oh,
hair.
bro, I know who you're thinking of though.
I think he was much
Stefano's leading F1 now. He's the one with
Yeah.
glasses and the short black hair.
That's not him.
I know who you're thinking of. He's
I
got like
think
the
he
Chad
did
trim.
much better with Ferrari because he actually had a competitive car. I think they would have won if Sebastian.
Arriva Bene. Was it Arriva Bene?
Maybe. I think they would have won if Sebastian was a lot more kind of competitive. Because I think Sebastian had passed his peak. And
Oh, it was. I'm actually such a beast, you know. Maurizio Arriva Bene, this one.
Yeah.
Come on.
I quite liked him. He's a good team principal, you know. Much better than Matteo Bonotto.
I mean,
Matteo, you
hasn't
kind of
done
think
exactly
he doesn't know
great
what
so
he's
far.
talking about half the time. I'm not even joking. Like I'm being serious.
No, yeah,
he doesn't know what he's talking
He
about.
does seem a bit clueless.
Out of everyone, like Andreas knows what he's doing at Seidel. Zach knows kind of what he's doing.
Zach's a joke, to be fair.
Yeah.
But
But he doesn't need to know. He's the CEO. He's not. What is he? The
He's
CEO?
not technical. He's CEO. Yeah. You're
no.
thinking of.
What's his name? Is the Ferrari CEO? Is it Matteo, or is he the technical head?
I want to say he's technical. We see him a lot for him just to be CEO.
Yeah.
We see him
Basically,
too much for him just.
He
to be
doesn't
CEO.
like even Toto knows like a lot more about the car. Christian knows that. I think Christian knows the most about the
He's
car.
the team principal. Yeah, he's the equivalent of Christian Horner. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
but
like Toto.
Christian and Toto know a lot more about what's happening than him.
Yeah.
Even Zach knows a lot more about what's
Yeah,
happening.
probably. But the point I was making with the tyres is what we really like to see. What you said about FP2, they run the data, they do the long runs, and then they run simulations on if our car starts here or if this happens, this is the optimal strategy. So they know exactly what they're doing pretty much. With this time, I've got like an image here. I'm not going to show it on there, but basically, there were two strategies which were about the same, which was going medium, hard, which is what most people did, or medium, hard, medium. These were about the same, obviously the difference being at the end, if you go a little bit longer on your hard tyres in the middle stint, then you end up with softer tyres at the end, you can go faster, but they'll grain quicker and all of this. In general, what I'm trying to say is, this should be how it runs all the time, right? Like, instead of having one set strategy that always works and it's the fastest and everyone does the same thing, you want to be able to have two different strategies that work, that people have options.
I think this comes down to Pirelli and how reliable their tires are. Which
Yeah,
now after Baku they've been forced to kind of reinforce the tires and make them kind of a lot more consistent because of the blowout with Max was dangerous, but Lance was a lot more dangerous because he was a lot closer to the pit entry, I think it was. So if he
I can't remember Lance's, but I know Max.
Max is the one who hit close to
what happened to Max is he spun the other way from the pit lane, but what they said was if it was the other tyre that blew out, there's a chance that he would have spun into the pit lane barrier, separating the pit wall, separating the pit lane from the actual track.
Yeah, and it would be like he would have bounced literally into the way.
And that impact as well would have been been going from like 180 miles an hour down to like 0 very fast.
Yeah, so I think they've been forced to kind of reinforce the tires and make a bit better tires. I think maybe if they reintroduce a second manufacturer, would be interesting. No, not in this. I don't want a 6-car Grand Prix again, to be honest, or whatever it was in the US. But in terms of like if for instance like they say okay we have Pirelli tires, we have say Bridgestones or whatever. I don't think this is gonna happen because no company actually wants to go into F1. But if they say if we have two tire manufacturers, make it a lot more interesting. I think like going hyper soft and all that stuff.
Oh,
just
remember
did
that?
not work out.
That was so funny. Like I think it's just a joke. Like
Yeah,
when you look back and there were like 5 different sets of tires and there were the entire rainbow and it was like the hyper soft, the super hard, the hard, the medium.
I think that was a bad idea. I think having these is interesting.
I liked the.
I think maybe if you have like a different tire that has like that's the idea. If you go back to the Ferrari like Michael's one when they had Bridgestones, the tire compared to Fernando's one in 2005, 2006. Excuse me, the shape of the tire was different, and so it had more or less aerodynamic effect depending on that.
Yeah.
And so if if you have two tires that are like same material or like similar material but have different shapes, that would affect the aerodynamics of the car a bit differently. I think that would introduce a new dimension, but I think
it would. But
I think that would be more along the lines of you're looking at that 2026, like with the new engine regulations.
Maybe, but what I see happening is exactly how they've done the regulations now, and everyone's like, oh, this helps the high rate cars and this is really bad for the low rate cars. Imagine they introduce something, just a small adjustment to what they've done with the aero now around the tyres and the front wing, and it helps one manufacturer and not the other. Like people.
Because the old sets will be there, the new sets are there as well, so you can use either.
Also, you don't have to stick to one.
No, that's what I'm saying. You choose one that aligns more with your philosophy.
Yeah.
And then you run with that the whole season.
Oh, but you know about this before the.
Yeah,
so it's one
you're
season contracts. That's what you're saying.
Essentially, but instead of the teams going to the company develops a set car, a set tire.
Independently, yeah.
And then they give them that. And they're like, choose this or this.
Ooh.
Because then it's a different idea. I also have some good news. McLaren officially denied any chance of them being bought out by was it not Audi?
Audi.
It was Audi, yeah.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's
because
not
I've
happening.
seen.
It's
I
official.
saw more rumours about it.
It's on the official McLaren website. So McLaren are not being bought by Audi. VW though have VW have like they're pushing more to get into F1, but they want. I think Toto was speaking about this. They want a few concessions in terms of like performance and stuff. But he's saying that from 2026 is new regulations, so we're all on even ground. The MGU-H, which is the big part essentially in the engine that takes a lot of experience to make, and you can see the difference with Honda this year. They've kind of nailed that finally, and the engine is a lot more competitive this year than it was like. I don't know, even a year ago. Even last year was not as competitive. Like Max it was very unreliable last year. So I think he does not want to obviously give a competitor an advantage, especially if that competitor goes on to have a partnership with someone like Red Bull, like their arch rivals. I think that's
takes one of their things. Like if they go to Aston Martin, now suddenly they've lost an engine customer.
So I think I don't think they should get, especially if you remove the MGH, then you don't have that kind of complex part that needs to be developed or whatever. And with the engine being frozen from next year on, so next year on they can't actually develop the engine. I think it's just for reliability.
Yeah.
That means that from next year on, and cost efficiency. So from next year on, they're actually developing the new engine. So if Audi come in from the next season, they have 5 years to develop an engine, test it, have deals with cars on the grid, test it and perfect, like, okay, they can't actually run it, but they can like run simulations on it and everything and actually test it in the factory on a test bed.
Basically what Mercedes did before 2014.
And then by the time 2026 comes around, they have a perfect engine. So I don't see a reason of giving them any concessions. I think getting rid of the MGUH, fair enough, but giving them concessions in terms of like anything else, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think it's fair for all the teams on the grid in terms of, because Red Bull, like if they don't actually have a partnership with Red Bull, then Red Bull are affected, Mercedes are affected, Renault are affected, Honda's gone obviously, but like so everyone is affected except they come in and they get this big advantage. Ferrari are affected, I totally forgot about Ferrari. Everyone's affected basically. I don't think that's fair.
Well, speaking of unreliable engines, I'm just gonna quickly get this and mark this historic occasion with. Where is it? Oh, it's the other way. Hold on. Yes, you love to see it.
GP2 engine. GP2 engine.
Okay, you can see that kind of well. This is 6 years ago now. Alonso, after his car failed, probably an engine failure. I actually don't know, but
This was Belgium.
It's a very good bet. No, what? It was Brazil, bro.
No, it was Belgium.
It was Brazil. They marked it on the thing. They put it on the tweet, yeah.
No, this is when he sat down, that's Belgium.
No, he was working the camera, bro. He was working the camera. I swear on F1.
Search. I remember this. I swear, was it not? It was Belgium. He sat down on that chair in Belgium because it was the end of the summer break.
They made him do that afterwards. You're thinking of a couple years later. They made him do that as like a joke, as in reference to this.
No.
But when he actually did it, look, they're doing it. That's Brazil, bro.
Check. I don't think.
I'm telling you, it's Brazil. You're telling me that's not. You see, that's the downhill corner there. and then that's is that Glock corner right there.
He did it again in Brazil. Okay, he did it again in Belgium. This
is what I mean. So this is them making him
okay.
do it in reference as a joke.
Okay. So he did do it in Belgium. I remember the Belgium one. I don't remember this one.
This was the original, bro.
I remember when he went on the radio. He's like GP2 engine.
I think that was Japan actually. That's what made it even worse. He said GP2 engine in reference to a Honda in Japan. Imagine. Madness. Right. We still haven't gotten onto the race, and like we're pretty much basically at the end almost. Yeah. So right at the beginning, Max squeezes Bottas off the track. Bro, we haven't even mentioned the main thing. Alright. Max squeezes Bottas off the track into turn 1.
I don't think
he got the inside.
I
Fair enough, but
that was
bro.
That was
he did exactly what he did all the time, all year. He forced him off onto the grass.
That was a clean.
He forced him onto the grass.
If you talk about like the Lando, I thought you were going to talk about Lando.
I mean,
Sainz.
that happened to. I'd say that was Lando as well. We cut across Sainz.
Yeah. Sainz didn't have really a lot of anywhere to go.
Yeah, true.
But I think the Valtteri one was fine. Because he gave him a lot of room, and Max is going to go for it.
Oh, Bottas shouldn't. Yeah, no, Bottas.
Bottas should have closed him off, but Bottas didn't do anything. So
he also should have opened up the corner, I feel like he just went to the middle ground. Like he could have gone all the way to the right, opened up the corner, got a better exit, and did what Lewis does, where he opens it up and then tries to get him towards turn 4. Or he could have kept him pinned against the pit wall.
He did neither, and so Max passed through. And obviously, when he turns, Valtteri's going to be pushed out a bit. But this is the question. This is the same thing that Lewis did at Silverstone. Maybe it's a quicker corner. It's obviously a lot quicker because it's one of the quickest. But then Valtteri yielded, but Max didn't yield. Silverstone so same idea of like, as in no you know Silverstone Lewis came on the inside, Max pinned it.
Oh right, yeah.
But the guy on the outside yielded essentially.
But I guess the difference is that one's much a fast corner. Like this one, they should be definitely in control of their cars.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Especially like that was both our first laps and everything.
Yeah. Right. So we're moving on
from. This is a sprint
that
race, so the car is on much less fuel.
No, this was main race now.
Oh, you're talking about the race?
Yeah, no, this was main race now. We're moving on to the main race.
I wasn't even.
We're so lost for it.
Yeah, right. I thought we were talking about the sprint race.
So, safety car comes out. Yuki did a little dive on Stroll. I'd say it was a bit ambitious, to be honest.
No, I don't like he was blaming Stroll. I don't know what he was doing there. Not Stroll. I don't know what Yuki was doing there.
Right.
Yuki has been so inconsistent. Like he did well was at Bahrain. First race of the season.
It might have. Yeah, I think he got points. Yeah, I think
he did
points.
really well at the first race of the season. Everyone got so hyped up, and since then he's been so inconsistent. You know, Gasly got most of the team's points. Like he got 92, and I think
90. I'd love to work it out. I'll try to work it out.
And what's the name he got? I think it was 18. Tsunoda. I don't know why to be honest, I don't know why they're keeping Tsunoda in the car for next year. If I was in their place, Tsunoda's gone, and I would have given the chance to someone like Liam Lawson or even Alex Albon, just someone else, because he hasn't proven himself at all. Like
true,
there's no reason to. There's also Oscar Piastri is an F2 who's performing really well. They have Jason Derulo, which I think like Jason Johan Derulo. I think he come behind like Liam Lawson and stuff. But they have quite a few really good drivers.
Yeah.
Why is Tsunoda still in the seat?
I don't know about his quality and
he's done nothing, but that's the thing. He's done nothing to actually, stay in the seat, the whole year.
Yeah, true.
That's the thing. Red Bull, they've always been over the course of the year, you haven't performed, you're gone. Why is he still there? I think a big part of it is Honda.
That's the politics behind that is probably a big thing, and I mean.
I think because Honda they're gonna keep developing the engine to the end of the year.
So they'll get rid of him next year.
And then halfway through the season, I see if he keeps performing this way, he's gone halfway.
Oh yeah, no. If he doesn't, because normally what you have is if they're not doing well or whatever, they'll have a standout performance where you're like, that's why we put you in this car.
Yeah, but
this is a great P6, nice one. There.
He hasn't had a standout performance this year.
Exactly.
To be fair, I'm not expecting him to be anywhere near Gasly, but you expect him to regularly score good points.
Yeah, there should be something.
When he scores points, he scores 10.
Yeah, and it's not very often he'll crash in FP2 or something.
Exactly, he's cost the team so much money. You have to think about it going into the cost cap era.
Yeah.
You can't have drivers crashing in FP2 every weekend.
Especially when like you're fighting with, like they were before this weekend they were equal with Alpine on points.
Alpine are
Gasly
ahead.
finished. They were equal before.
Yeah, but Alpine
Brazil.
are ahead now.
They're ahead now because I believe they
Gasly
came
was
8th
ahead
and
of
9th.
them.
Gasly came 7th and then
Yeah.
they came 8th and 9th.
But,
Right. Well, this incident brought out the safety car. Lewis at this point had just been let past by Bottas, which put him 3rd. And now we come on to the safety car restart, which was.
I think it was perfect time. For
It
Hamilton.
looked so good.
Perfect.
Did you see
time
the
for
images of
Hamilton.
the safety car restart were insane? And yes, it was, because
I'm-
now he's behind Max and Perez, right behind both of them. The gap is completely closed down.
Exactly. Max was starting to build a gap, and the safety car is just perfect. But I think that also the second thing is the way Max, you have to give it to him, the way he executed the restart.
Yes.
Lewis had a big advantage on that straight, and he took all the wind out of Lewis's sail. Like, Lewis could have passed Perez
I
realistically.
probably had a go at, well, not had a go at Max,
but he
but been
set it up
alongside.
where Lewis did not get the full effect of the toe, and then he lost a lot on like the turn. So I think you have to give him credit. The way he executed that restart was inch perfect. It was just incredible.
It was
But you
good
have to
stuff
give
from
it to
him, yeah, it was impressive. So Lewis battles with Perez. It takes him a couple goes, but eventually he gets past him, that was fun to see. Once again, Perez gets overtaken by Lewis, gets him back, and then Lewis has to go around and do it again the next lap. It was a good battle. But then he closes the gap to Max, it's about 3 seconds, undercuts Max, and in 1 lap he halves the gap. Like, 1 lap undercut and he gained the 2.5, which is like, in a short lap it's pretty impressive to be fair.
You have to give it to the team though. Mercedes were, in terms of strategy yesterday, it was very good. Which they've been
Yeah, we
so
don't normally say
inconsistent.
anymore.
No, we usually say that like last year, but this year they've been so inconsistent with the strategy. Yesterday they cut down Verstappen's like lead to 1.5, so he's within range.
Yeah, as soon as he
And
comes
then
out.
once he's within like that's also like he comes down to 2 seconds I think, and the gap between them is 2 seconds, and that's with Ricardo in the way. So if Ricardo wasn't in the way, realistically that could have been like say a second difference, or a second 1.2, 1.3. So he would have been literally within DRS, like just DRS range. So I think they did a great job on that. Valtteri is saying that they lost an easy 1-2. I do not see that.
I don't know in what world Valtteri Bottas
Yeah.
gets past Max Verstappen or keeps him behind.
Yeah,
But
that wasn't gonna happen.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Either way, so he also in the second round, so I mean the middle stint, to be honest I've completely forgotten what happened, but on to the next one. We had similar to Cota, where Mercedes decides to leave Lewis out for an extra 3 laps in comparison to Max, which I got flashbacks to when you were saying this is when they lost the race, because I believe Cota was the one we watched together.
But Cota is a bit different because Cota Lewis was losing time quickly.
Yeah.
Brazil he wasn't. Brazil he kept on the pace. He came out. And
That's why I was surprised. The gap was the same. Yeah.
So that was, and it made a difference. Those 3 extra laps actually made a big difference because it allowed him to push, and knowing that I have 3 extra laps of life in the tire, so I can stay behind you quite consistently for a bit.
Yeah.
Cota was a different circuit. Max just had so much more pace than Lewis. I think this is the difference. Mercedes had a lot more pace at Brazil, so they could actually stay out realistically, keep the this is the difference in Mercedes. At Cota had no pace in comparison to Red Bull, whereas at Brazil, realistically the ball was on the other foot, and Mercedes had a better performance, and they were able to keep it out even on old tires.
They had more options.
Yeah, he was doing same laps pretty much as Max.
On his
So
own tires,
when he came out on the new tires, blasting past.
Well, on to that then. So, I'll let you speak first. Hopefully you don't take up the rest of the time we have left. But Lewis does what he normally does on the way. Well, what he normally did to Max when he was setting up the move. He's a bit too far behind, but he has a look down the inside. Max goes to defend, ruins his run down the centre S. Lewis, who's already faked the move, goes back to the racing line, gets a very good run through the centre S's. Second DRS zone, opens it up, down the straight into turn 4. A fairly fast corner, and one that it kind of gets away from them. It's slightly downhill, it's a bit awkward. Normally, sometimes they go off there. We saw track limits being used there to delete lap times in quali.
You're talking about the actual move.
But now I'm talking about now I'm talking about the attempt at the move.
No, but that's the thing. The attempt at the move. The difference in the attempt at the move and the actual move is, in the attempt, Verstappen had a good exit. That was the difference. Verstappen had a good exit, so he was able to keep it on track. No, not on track. He was able to. He had much better exit, much better speed. He was able to keep
Kept it
Lewis behind.
alongside.
Yeah. He was able. So I think there's an argument in terms of, until you see the steering,
Yeah.
you can't make like an assumption. I think that's the thing
Okay.
that with the stewards, they have the steering angle and everything.
They said they didn't.
They didn't.
So here's the thing.
This is.
Let's run through what happened. So Lewis is alongside Max. They're side by side. They go into the corner. Max, we're gonna say, how do we even put this? So he goes wide. Whether it was on purpose or not, you can't really say yet. I
Exactly.
guess.
That's why
He's going wide. Both of them end up off the track. The argument Mercedes are making is he went off track and gained an unfair advantage, or a lasting unfair advantage.
It took Lewis a few laps to catch him, to be close enough to make another move.
So this gets noted by the stewards, which means that it's not even an investigation at this point. They've just written it down as something worth looking at. Michael Massey then has a look at the camera angles that we were shown on Sky Sports, not the extra ones that the stewards get, not like various different ones. The ones we got shown on TV, the ones he looked at, he then says, yeah, no, it's not worth sending to the stewards, we don't need to investigate this, and then just bins the whole thing.
I think you can't make a decision on this without actually looking at the steering. Because
so do you think he should have sent it to the stewards to have a look at it?
I think the stewards should have had I think it should have been
at the very least an investigation.
Yeah, because then they could have had a look. The stewards would have all the data, so they'd have a look at the steering angle and everything. If he literally just loses it because of like the tires weren't working, fair enough. But if he actually,
I mean, here's the thing. On Lewis's onboard, it looked like there was a slight opening.
You can't really
but
see.
you can't really.
It's the same thing with the helicopter one. You can't really.
I'd say it's. You know what I'm just gonna say is really convenient for them this weekend. I listened to an F1 podcast earlier, and let's just say the way they were talking, I completely agree with. They said it was very convenient that on the last weekend of F1 sprint races, before they're gonna announce that we're gonna do 6 next year and all of this, Lewis Hamilton ends up at the back of the grid, and he has to fight his way through, and is the one thing that made the sprint race weekend interesting. He then goes on to, I think they had flashbacks to Canada and Monza 2019. So Canada is the one where Vettel goes across the corner, cuts it because he missed it, and then as Lewis goes to overtake him, he closes the door on him. He got a penalty for that. Lewis then doesn't overtake him, he just stays within 5 seconds and wins the race from second place. This went down very badly, just in general, Twitter blew up, everyone hated it because they just didn't like the fact that they weren't allowed to let them race. Monza, Charles Leclerc squeezes him off the track as Lewis is trying to... Once again, Lewis is trying to overtake someone, he gets squeezed off the track. He wasn't given a car's width, even though he was, significantly alongside and probably deserved the space. They also didn't give him a penalty, they gave him a black and white flag, which was one of the first times they properly used it, because they kind of binned the black and white flag for the past few years. Who would have thought Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari at Monza on his way to his first win, or no, second win in a row, first win for Ferrari in Monza in probably 7 years, didn't get a penalty and they didn't let Lewis. Who would have thought, really? So I'd say it's very inconsistent from them. I feel like they love this. They push the narrative. I feel like the stewards, as much as they want to say they base it on situation, they base it on the narrative. They say, I'd rather see Lewis pass him on track because he's probably going to pass him anyway. We might as well let him give it a go instead of giving
That's
a
what
penalty.
I was saying. You know how someone mentioned that the stewards change from race to race. I think if you have the same set of stewards, then they can clarify, because you get to see at this race, no, this isn't allowed, this is allowed, and it's a lot more consistent. Whereas if it's a different set of stewards, then they apply the rules a bit differently, because they're not going to think the same way. I think there was a few years back you got to see the drivers, what's his name, the old guy, white hair, used to have a chat with the drivers before the race about issues they had from the previous race and stuff.
Charlie Whiting.
Charlie Whiting.
Oh, rest in peace, Charlie Whiting. Bro.
Yeah,
Elite,
but that was great because you actually got to see like, okay, you can't do this at this.
You're right. Yeah, they'd bring up issues they had. They basically snitch on each other. They'd say, is this allowed? I saw this guy cut the corner over here. Is he allowed to do that?
But then you clear out the like, as in, for this race, this won't work. This won't work. This won't work.
Like what they do when they say, this weekend, the track limit is the curb. Go up until the curb. You can go past the white line. You can keep going. When they're doing those specifics.
I think with track limits, I think people don't understand it because not all. So if I pass track limits on a certain corner, I'm not going to gain an advantage with all of them.
Yeah.
So if I like they're only going to put track limits on the corners where you gain an advantage. If you lose an advantage on one corner, they're not going to be like track limits because they're helping you. They don't get. If you gain an advantage, that's when track limits is a thing. I think people misapply it in terms of that. Oh look, he's outside the track. Yeah, but he lost time there. So
true. Like France, that's why they have the weird friction.
Exactly.
All the sausage curbs. Like if someone goes over a sausage curb, they're not gonna say, "Oh, track limits, bro." Like, would you? You're not doing that.
No one cares because you lost time. So it's like you're paying for it. I don't need to do that again, right? But yeah, I think the stewards have been incredibly inconsistent over the course of like this year and like the past few years, to be honest. Like you see something happen over the course of a race, the next race is something different, and it's just incredibly inconsistent.
I'd say the let them race philosophy is just the biggest excuse I've ever heard in my life. They just love doing that. The whole let them race thing that they've started in like 2019, I think they started trying to be more lenient and stuff. I've just hated it, to be honest. Like it just, realistically, if we take Max Verstappen as an example, right? The move Lewis made, he got in front of him before the braking time. If he didn't do that, Max would defend the inside as he normally does, fair enough. Pushes Lewis to the outside, fair enough. But then force him off the track and that's the end. Exactly. And you're right, I know you're about to say, obviously, I'm not blaming Max for this, he's been taking advantage of this for ages.
No,
it's not his fault, it's the stewards for not implementing it. Because if they handed out penalties for that stuff, he definitely would have stopped. But they just allow it to happen.
It's not just that, like, I get him taking the corner, I get it's your corner, you dictate it. Yeah. But when you push a guy off track, and you push him, what happened with Lewis is he didn't push him off track a bit. He went so far off track, Lewis, and Max himself went so far off track. I don't think like people got penalties for less.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. Yeah.
People got penalties for less. Same thing, but much less. They got penalties for that. So I was surprised when it was like no investigation necessary. I was like,
and not even an investigation.
What are you talking about? So yeah,
taking the wrong way again.
I think they've been incredibly inconsistent. I think the stewards need to kind of have a
long hard look at themselves.
No, they need to sit down and kind of decide how they're going to implement the rules. If pushing a guy off track is going to be okay.
Then let me see Alonso do that. Yeah, let me see Alonso do that to Gasly. Force him off the track, Gasly complain, and then them not give him a penalty. Because I guarantee if that happens in the midfield, they're handing out penalties.
You know the interesting thing is you mentioned Alonso and he was mentions the British bias in the media.
Oh my.
It's not just that he talks about like stewards and all of that. The interesting thing is whenever someone's pushed off a track and there is no penalty, it's usually Hamilton being pushed off a track and it's no penalty. So you think if there is British bias, then Hamilton would win because of these penalties, it'd pass because of these penalties. But it's usually Hamilton who's not getting it. So I find it a bit kind of...
Yeah, I don't know about British bias. I definitely say there's bias.
I say there's British bias in the media. Like,
yeah, true. But I'd say there's narrative bias, this is the thing. Like I said, Charles Leclerc, Ferrari, home race in Monza. Are you really going to give him a 5-second penalty for squeezing Hamilton off the track? No, you're going to say black and white flag, don't do it again. Are you really going to give...
But that's the thing, Max, do you see Max weaving in Brazil?
Yeah.
In front of Lewis?
Yeah.
Max, you're allowed to move once. Max wasn't moving. Bro, Max was just going... when they're warming up the tires...
Yeah, that's exactly what it looked like.
That's what he was doing. He's just going all across the track. He got a black and white flag. I was just sitting there. I was like, fair enough, he got a black and white flag. I understand that, but did you see his reply? It's like, yeah, say hi.
Yeah, bro.
That was funny. That was funny, but that's the thing. Like,
it was funny, but the rules are a joke now.
Exactly. That's the idea.
He was making jokes about the fine as well.
The stewards are a joke. That's the thing. Yeah. The stewards are a joke.
And the thing is, actually, so to mention why he was touching the rear wing in the first place, another bit of information I saw is Red Bull were actually planning on protesting Mercedes' rear wing anyway, to do with it flexing and stuff. So what he was trying to feel was like how rigid it is, because they were basically they're trying to figure out how Mercedes have got all this straight line speed aside from the engine, and they're saying that like when he felt his own rear wing, then went over to feel his one, and they said there's a significant difference. They're feeling like his is a lot more fragile, which is interesting because
or Max's.
No, Lewis is more fragile. Even though Red Bulls has been braking for the past like 3 races each time, but we'll see. Either way, we'll call it there. We're gonna go on to our predictions.
Before you do that,
yes,
there's one thing I want to mention.
Yes.
Sebastian Vettel with his race engineer.
Oh, I saw this.
I'm gonna touch Lewis Hamilton's rear wing. He's like, don't you dare! Okay, I'm gonna touch the front wing. Maybe it's 25,000. That was actually one of the highlights of the weekend. It was just such a kind of a funny bit.
Seb is so wholesome, man.
Yeah, he was not very wholesome when he was at Red Bull.
No,
I think now people like him because he's mellowed out a bit. He's not as aggressive because he was just as aggressive as Max. It'd be
true. Yeah, he was ruthless, to be fair.
It'd be interesting to see in a few years' time when he's won like 3-4 championships how Max is. Will he mellow out, or will he still have that same drive? Because that's what makes a difference between being Sebastian and Michael and Lewis.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna say Lewis, because to be fair, Lewis had such a dominant car that he did not have anyone close. I'd say more Michael.
Wow.
No, because Michael actually had like real contenders. So I'd say more Michael.
I mean, you mean in terms of names? You're saying Michael was fighting against?
No, in terms of like Michael to the very end before he left like in 2007. 6.
End of 6.
Yeah, Michael had that kind of ego, that arrogance, that fire to win, all of that.
Right.
Lewis never had like with
he had
Nico,
hunger, but I see what you mean.
With Nico, he had that ego, that hunger. After that, he was guaranteed to win.
So to be fair, even looking back at Vettel era, I'd say
but
he
Vettel
always had that confidence. That
Vettel had that. Michael had it. Vettel had it. It'd be interesting to see if he mellows out like Vettel, or if he keeps it up like Michael, because that's the difference in a 7-time and a 4-time world champion. If Vettel had that same ruthlessness, that same kind of
if Verstappen had that
fire,
Vettel
might have been a 7-time world champion, because he lost it in Hockenheim.
Oh right, no, yeah,
I
see what you mean. Yeah, no, I thought.
So is Max
Max
gonna be able to keep that hunger for 7-8 world championships, or
for 20 seasons in F1 or something?
Yeah, once he hits 4, because that's the once he's hit 4, mentally Seb was not the same. Once he lost to Daniel, he went to Ferrari, he was not the same. He just lost that kind of edge. That's why I'm saying that fire and kind of spirit is that edge that makes a driver go from like great to just unstoppable.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting thing to see what happens with Max, because he's like this year, I'd say like, besides like the only time I've seen him kind of, if you take out like Brazil, and like the races in which he actually had crashed out, he's been incredibly consistent, and by incredibly because I mean he's been driving spectacularly.
True.
The only time Lewis actually really passed him was that one, and maybe Portimao, where he passed him kind of like, he passed him and then Max passed him in the beginning and then he caught up. Passed him.
I've forgotten.
But basically, throughout the season, Max has been incredibly consistent. After Bahrain, I'd say Bahrain, he had that mistiming of the overtake.
But it's understandable.
Yeah, but that's at the beginning. He gained experience, and he's been doing phenomenally since. So it'd be interesting to see if he's able to keep that overall. Because that's the difference between a great driver and a kind of legendary driver, is they're able to keep it up for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Like Ayrton Senna,
louder. Recently when I saw
he kept
after
it up
he
for
came back from the accident and then goes and wins another world championship. Like that's different.
And
it was years after that one as well.
That's what makes the difference between great and a world class a legendary driver. So it'd be, because I think Max has the spirit, he has the drive, he has the talent.
He has the talent, yeah.
Will he be by the end of his career in those kind of top 5, top 10 names?
That is the one thing stopping him, I'd say. I mean, other than like a little bit of luck as well, because like
Yeah,
need a bit of luck with
I
the
think it'll be
regulations,
harder
which
to
team
Max.
you're with, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think Max will be as lucky in terms of Lewis, for instance.
Well, that's like a once in a lifetime.
No, but
That's
as in
insane.
like, look at the talent Lewis had on the grid when he was driving, when he won like the 6 titles. The only credible, like, really good driver was Nico, and I would
Well,
not.
do you know what it is? It's Nico and Vettel, but mainly because Vettel
But
just
even
took
then-
that era.
exactly,
Like, Vettel took
Vettel-
that era away from everyone else.
Yeah, Vettel was off his peak,
Yeah.
and then Nico was Nico
And he
was
ruined
never
everyone
as
else's
good
peak,
as
to be honest.
yeah, and Nico was never as good as Lewis. So
Yeah.
realistically, no one was close. But in Max's
Is-
era, from
yeah.
next year, in terms of like who could potentially be world class drivers, you have George, you have Lando, you have Charles, and then I think those 3.
It all depends if they meet their potential, though, because if
Yeah.
they all fall off and end up in the midfield and stay there
Yeah.
for like.
So
half
that's the
their
interesting
careers,
part. That's the interesting part because they could potentially go on to win a lot of championships.
You'd want to see them all, like we said before. You'd want to see them all.
Win.
Yeah, like reaching their potential in different
If they reach
machinery,
their
fighting
Yeah.
at the top together, and then we actually see who's the best.
Mm.
Well, right, back to our Brazil predictions quickly. Qualifying had already happened. Sprint qualifying, you said Lewis. Oh yeah, of course. This is before he got disqualified.
Yeah.
So you said Lewis. Right, we'll take that out. It was top 3. You
I
said
think
Max and
ignore
Bottas.
sprint qualifying
Wrong.
because of that.
I said Max and Perez wrong. Wow, that was horrific.
Okay.
Right,
Skip
next.
qualifying.
Yeah.
Ignore qualifying.
Race top 5.
It did
Also, not knowing that Lewis would get disqualified.
Yeah.
But
But this very started from P10, so.
yeah, more realistic-ish.
I did tell you, once sprint ended, I did tell you Lewis was going to win, and you're like, no.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not.
okay, yeah, yeah. Our WhatsApp conversation was pretty much you trying to tell me that Lewis is going to win and me not believing
And
it.
I was right.
You were, but unfortunately for you,
This
I,
is before,
according to these predictions, it says Max, Lewis, Bottas, Perez, Gasly. Max, no, Lewis, so you've got them wrong around.
Yeah.
Bottas, Perez, Leclerc.
Okay.
So, if you'd gone with what you told me the day before the race,
Yeah.
then you would have got the top 4 right out of 5.
I'm happy. It's not too bad.
I said, oof. Max, no. Perez, no. Lewis, nowhere near. Gasly, no. And then I got Leclerc 5th.
Who did you say?
That was it.
What
I
did
said Max, Perez, Lewis, Gasly, Leclerc. And the only person I got right was Leclerc in 5th.
It's okay. So I win 2 weeks in a row, basically.
Sick. Alright. Well, this one's going to be a different one. This one's going to be different levels. Kotor, right.
Okay, no. We'll do predictions afterwards. You can't do predictions now. We have no clue what's gonna happen on the circuit.
Oh, we have to do predictions now.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
Predictions now. No practice, no quality, no
I don't
anything.
even know how the circuit
No
looks.
data at all.
I don't know
Just
how
straight on.
I
Yeah,
literally
but
have
how
no
else are
clue.
we going to do it though?
I think it's Lewis, Valtteri, Max, Perez, and
No,
Charles.
wait, top 3. Just top 3 for qualifying.
Lewis, Valtteri, Lewis, Max, Valtteri.
Okay. Interesting. I'm going to go with... Oh, it's a new track though. Do I back Bottas? Actually, no, I don't. Lewis...
Wait, okay, I want to see the circuit. If I see the circuit, I can...
I'm going with Lewis, Max and Bottas as well. Actually,
Okay,
no, Lewis, Max and Perez. I'm going to go with Perez.
okay.
Race top 5.
Lewis, Max, Bottas, Perez, and Charles. I back. See this. You know the disappointing thing about this season is McLaren and Daniel Ricciardo. I think if Daniel had performed well, McLaren would easily have just destroyed the Ferrari.
Yeah, we've said this. Yeah, they'd
Well,
be way
he's been
far. And now,
incredibly
after
inconsistent.
Ferrari's 5th and 6th yesterday,
Yeah.
that's like...
They're basically they're third in the championship, and it's all because of Daniel.
I don't know if they've fully confirmed it, but it's going to be a lot for McLaren to spin that back around.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. My top 5 for the race, I'm going to call... We'll say Lewis wins it. You know what? Max hasn't had a bad weekend in a long time.
Okay.
I'm going to say... something's going to happen. Who do I bring down with him? It's Bottas.
Come on.
You know what? Perez, Sainz. This is going to be so random, yeah. Sainz, right.
Lando. Charles.
This is so hard. What do
See, I
do?
told you have to.
Oh my god. Max. We'll go with Max. And then last one is going to be
Bottas, you have to put
No,
Bottas.
Bottas is going in the
Then
bin. He's going to get
Charles.
stuck.
Or Gasly.
We'll go with Gasly, Charles, and back Charles. Right, so Lewis, Perez, Sainz, Max, Charles.
That's such a weird top 5, I'm not gonna lie.
I'm going for it. I feel like something dumb's going to happen. Or at least I hope something dumb happens.
Yeah.
Right, I don't think we did driver of the day last time. No, there was too many in there. I think the
Driver
sprint
of the day
quality
is easy
confusion.
this time, Lewis. Worst driver of the day, Tsunoda. It's easy.
Fair enough.
It's very
But
obvious.
your prediction for Qatar driver of the day? Who do you think will get voted?
That's weird.
I've got one in my mind. I don't know why, but this name came to my
Yuki?
head. Yuki?
No, I'm asking if yours is...
No. Mine's going to be like, I'm going to go with Alonso.
No. See, it's the thing, I don't know what the format of the layout of the track is, so I can't guess.
You just got to guess who's going to qualify badly and make up 8 places in the race.
Obviously, I can't choose...
Actually, no, I'm taking it back. I'm going with Sainz. Because I'm predicting him to come 3rd, so why would I not give him the thing?
I'll just say Charles, to be honest. No, not Charles.
No?
Bro, this is so hard.
Say a name, bro.
Lewis, if he wins, like, he'll probably get driver of the day, probably.
Okay. Yeah, maybe.
To be fair, if I lose next weekend, it's okay. I've got 2 weekends on this, so...
Yeah,
I've destroyed you over 2 weekends, so it's okay.
Wow. Alright. Well, if my top 5 prediction comes true, that's basically worth 4, let's be honest.
No. It's worth 1 weekend. No.
Because
I guess blindly as well, so...
Yeah, but mine was more random. Yours was very safe. We'll see what happens.
Mine is more realistic as well. It's gonna happen.
Probably.
Yeah.
Right. Well, to round us off, I'm gonna do the outro with this picture. Where is it? Come on. Yeah, there we go. Right. Cool. So, this has been the Dirty Side of the Grid podcast. Hopefully, you've enjoyed this Brazil roundup. We actually managed, even with our coursework, so I hope you appreciate it. We are filming on a Monday. So this will actually come out not the day of the race or the day before or something. We'll actually post this fairly early in the week. So everything's fresh in your mind. Hopefully you can remember it. F1 will be posting the highlights and the driver on boards and radio messages and all that. So, decent race.
Listening.
Thank you for watching or listening or whatever you're using. And... guess we'll see you next week for Qatar.
Qatar, yeah.
Alright.